Calling to order meeting of the Board of Trustees. The time is 4:48 p.m. Please call the roll.
President Herrera,
Here.
Vice President Chavez,
Here.
Clerk Cortese. Here. Member Doe,
Here.
Member Lay.
Again, welcome to the board meeting of January 27, 2022. Are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment to the board on a closed session agenda item at this time? Seeing none, hearing none, we will recess to closed session. Thank you. Resuming now in open session, the meeting of the Board of Trustees, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everyone, to the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees on January 27, 2022. Just make some adjustments here. Members of the public can submit public comments online by accessing the form that is on the district's homepage at www.esuhsd.org or the link on the agenda. Please limit your written comments to no more than 1,000 characters in length. Public comments submitted online will be read into the record. You may also raise your virtual hand in Zoom to request to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Please note also that all meetings are recorded. All regular and special meetings of the Board of Trustees and board study sessions are streamed live on meeting nights and are also available for viewing the day after the meeting by accessing the district's YouTube channel listed on the district's webpage, the quick links section. The board is not able to respond to items that are not on the published agenda or respond to any personnel issues. Your comment will be read into the record and will be directed to the superintendent and/or the appropriate staff member for response. Interpretations of this meeting in Spanish and Vietnamese can be heard by accessing the link and following the instructions shown on the agenda and on the district's website. With that, let us proceed with the agenda. Item that concluded item 4.01, moving on to item 5 on the agenda, 5.01, members of the board. Mr. Superintendent, are there any requests for changing anything on the published agenda, either in the order of or removing anything?
There are not.
No request, members of the board. I'm going to proceed then with item 6, board special recognition 6.01, staff building equitable communities. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Herrera. For this month, we honor the following Eastside staff who are striving towards equitable communities. Our first honoree is Salvador Martinez, School Community Specialist at Pegasus High School. And kudos from his principal read as follows. Mr. Martinez has been a wonderful addition to the Pegasus family. His dedication to our students and his work to support our families in opening doors makes him perfect for supporting the student population. Additionally, his experience and connections throughout our district have helped him have positive impacts on the entire school community. Congratulations to Mr. Martinez. Our next honoree is Andrea Baba Inegas from James Hicks High School. She's a physical education teacher, 504 coordinator, and a member of the math PE team. And kudos from her principal read as follows. Andrea Baba Inegas truly embodies our district's equitable communities work. Every day, you can truly see and feel how much love and care she has for every single student, no matter who they are, where they come from, or the behavior they may have displayed. Ms. Baba works with them from a place of care and empathy. When our staff thinks of a person who truly personifies welcoming all students as they are and supporting them in their areas of growth, Ms. Baba is the first one that comes to mind. In her work as a PE teacher in our math PE co-taught classes, she's dedicated to helping students engage and find meaning in physical fitness and collaboration. As a 504 and short-term independent studies coordinator, Ms. Baba works with students and their families to find differentiated ways to truly support their needs so they can find success in school. She is truly an inspiration to all of us Comets. Congratulations to Ms. Baba Inegas. And finally, our last honoree is Mr. Nicholas Barnes, Mount Pleasant High School Special Education ED Program Educational Specialist. And kudos from his principal read as follows. I am recognizing Nicholas Barnes for his work in supporting and advocating for students in our ED program here at Mount Pleasant. Mr. Barnes cultivates positive relationships with the students in our program, even if they are not in his class. He is both respected and trusted by students and staff alike. Mr. Barnes helps bridge the gaps that sometimes occur when it comes to students' voices being heard. His efforts and his patience play an important role in building equitable communities at our school. Thank you for all that you do. Congratulations to our honorees.
Thank you very much. We always appreciate this part of our agenda to be able to give at least some recognition to the great work that's being done in our district, especially as part of building equitable communities. Thank you to our staff who have been recognized this evening. Moving on to item 7.01, and that is our Student Governing Board Representative, Paula Escobar. Paula, go ahead with your comments.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, well, I hope you guys are all having a great night. So from the Student Governing Board, this past week, we continued to talk about COVID, and we finally got our student survey made, and we're going to make some edits, and then we're planning on releasing it within the next days. Next, we're also planning on collaborating with T clubs across Eastside campuses, and T stands for Teens Ending Abuse. And so in this initiative, we hope to bring the conversation of really making sure that gender-neutral bathrooms are placed on every Eastside campus, as well as making sure that students are aware of how Title IX functions and how that affects students. And so with the T Club and with the YWCA, we really hope to pursue one of our goals of ensuring that students feel safe on campus, as well as making sure that they're aware of how consent works and that student safety is placed as a priority, and that we are really honing in on the value of equitable sex education and how we can really support our students in that. We have also been talking about bylaws, and we hope to kind of propose something to the board sometime soon. And that is something we've been developing for this past year as well. A thank you I would like to give out is to Californians for Justice, just for being so supportive of our work and for also continuing their own work in their own campaigns, specifically surrounding educating students across our district about the school to prison pipeline and other topics that impact our students, as well as really going on the initiative of getting more students involved in the budgetary process. So yeah, shout out to CFJ and to all the CFJ students involved in Eastside. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you to our Student Board Representative, Paula Escobar. Moving on to item 8.01. And again, this is where the board or the superintendent may request items be considered and discussed and acted out of order from what's indicated on the published agenda. Are there any such requests?
There are none.
Okay, if not, we're moving on to Item 8.02, presentation, discussion, and/or action regarding the governor's January budget proposal. Mr. Ron Houlihan, interim associate superintendent of business services.
Good evening. Good evening, board, staff, and members of the community. Tonight, I'm bringing forward the governor's proposed budget. I took the 300-page budget and narrowed it down to about 12 or 14 slides, full of a lot of things. It is a good budget year. And as we go through the year, I'm going to test my testing one forward. Maybe I can just give you the sign. So as we report to you throughout the year, we've already gone through this year's first interim, and now we have the governor's budget proposal. And next month, we'll bring forward the unaudited, the actuals, and I guess if you can. Okay. Yeah, I understand. I was trying to get closer for. Yeah, I was trying to get closer for the PowerPoint. Yeah. Okay. And I'll just have Mr. Vanderzee kind of go through. So this is the budget proposal. We'll get to the budget development phase, February through May. Bring a proposed budget to you in June with the LCAP and the budget adoption wrapping up in the last week of June. So the governor about 2 weeks ago on January 10th brought forward his budget. It is an election year, and he was fortunate to have a large one-time surplus based on an unprecedented amount of capital gains taxes that came into the state. So his proposal with those funds, 80% of them are one-time in nature, to put money in the cash reserve, add more dollars to the COVID response, address the drought and wildfires, buy new equipment, new airplanes to fight wildfires, deal with our initiative to reduce CO2 emissions with clean energy, address homelessness, address healthcare issues, as well as children's behavioral health, and finally, low-income housing and rental. So again, these are pain points for Californians, although these impact our students. We went through the wildfire season. We have homelessness near us. We've got behavioral health. So although these are not on the education side, I feel these are good for the state of California. So next slide, please. On the other side, he's calling this California for all kids. So he has some potential fiscal augmentations to the education budget. Next slide. Putting on a 5.33 COLA onto the LCFF funding, and that's going to cost 2.1 billion ongoing. And the second piece of that, he broke off the ADA attendance issues, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. There are different proposals out there. He proposes to increase special education funding, 500 million, as well as a universal meal program where every student gets 2 meals a day, regarding of financial status. Other ones of interest to us. So I didn't put all of the education to childcare, the ones that affect K through 8. I put only the ones that are pertinent to us. So additional proposals, adding money to career pathway programs, putting dollars over 3 years into our dual enrollment program, such as our Compass, it's college prep programs. He has a proposal to also add green buses and provide school districts with green buses. So these are additional LCFF dollars. It's not an overall percentage to our total funding. These are going to come in dollars. So next slide. So for our district, a potential gain, if the 5.33 COLA holds and the ADA loss is fixed, we could get an additional $11.1 million increase. Now, this is a proposal. We've got a long ways to go. I assure you the governor's budget proposal will look a lot different in in May when he does the revise.
I don't understand the phrase, if the ADA loss is fixed. What does that mean?
Okay, and I do have another slide on that. So
You'll get to that?
yeah, we'll
Okay,
get to
thank you.
that. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So that's the loss we're suffering because of COVID. If we get to the universal program, we could see a relief of $675 in our universal in our contribution to food services. $675,000. And special ed, if we get additional AB 602 dollars, we could see a reduction of our contribution into the general and into special ed reduced by 300. So these are, when asked, what is the governor's budget? What are the potential good things that can come out? Here's a summary of what this could do for us. Okay. I met with the county office and school services this morning. They had a phone conference. So right now, the recommendation is not to include these into our second interim report, but we certainly can start taking a look at those numbers if the governor's proposal holds up. So when we bring you the second interim in March, it won't include these increases until the trailer bill gets through, until we have something to look at, but we certainly can look at the numbers as we see them come out. Next slide. So this is the ADA fix is what they're calling it. So as you can see, and I presented this last week, is last year we were able to hold our ADA and we had the same funding in 2020, 2021. Our P1 just came out, just finished. Our ADA dropped over 1,200 students. After the first of the year, we were seeing days where 80% attendance rates, only 1 in 5 kids were out. So the fix is to flatten this out. So we were facing a cliff, and this would be to use a 3-year average, 1, 2, 3, and provide us with a smoothing so that we get the additional dollars.
I'm noticing that the highlight pointer isn't showing up on the screen for it, so the audience can't have the benefit that we have in the room here following your.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let's see, the green is not showing up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is what the cliff looks like. Looks like the solution. There are several bills that will be heard in February. Next slide, please. The first bill, AB 1607, is very similar to the governor's. So when we saw this cliff coming, these bills were put out before the governor's budget proposal. So there's already a bill that will be heard in February regarding averaging the last 3 years of ADA. There's another bill, AB 1609, which instead of doing an average, allows you to pick the best year, 1920, 2021, or 22, 23. And there's another bill out there. Don't look at ADA at all. Please just put on another 4.2 billion above the COLA. So not fund based on ADA, just increase our COLA, because the COLA that is proposed is statutory. It's only enough for us to keep up with inflation. So this proposal is to add on to the COLA. And then the last one, SB 830, this is a supplemental funding or another categorical, which would allow dollars for the difference between the students that are attending that are not, allow supplemental dollars to address low attendance rates in students with low attendance. And you'd have to use half the dollars to try to track down students. It's not, there are no proposals to base funding on enrollment. The thought being that if we just base it on enrollment, there won't be efforts to bring kids to school every day. So it's going to be some kind of ADA type, but with maybe some additional funding to address the absenteeism. Okay. Non-fiscal proposals, there's the anticipation that independence study will continue next year. Another proposal around is that how about allowing synchronous instruction to count for instruction time? That's a proposal is out. The next one around that is to give us more time to collect signed independent student agreements. So those are proposed for independent study. And then on the other side, next slide, to address the low amount of special ed funding, to put a addendum into the LCAP for special ed. And that probably won't happen next year, but the proposal is to have in future years adding the special ed into the LCAP. And also in special ed funding. So right now, the funding goes directly to the SELPA. This proposal is to calculate funding at each individual LEA that are in a SELPA and allow us to see which dollars go towards the SELPA. Although it won't change the funding structure, it'd be more transparent on which districts are getting which dollars. So then the SELPA can make efforts for equity among the different participants in the SELPA. And next slide. So the next slide is what is not in the budget. There is no proposal, it wasn't a proposal from the governor to help us with pension plans and the increasing cost. We're looking to see a 2% increase in both PERS and STIRS next year. Also not in there is to give us money beyond the COLA. This inflation has gone skyrocket. We're paying more for paper, gas, all that. The 5.33 just keeps us above inflation. So we'd like to see additional COLA. And then finally, if they do go to universal meals, how do we adjust our UPP, which is our unduplicated pupil percentage, which is based on free and reduced lunches? So the governor made the proposal, but it was like, wait a minute, if we're no longer doing free and reduced meals, how are we going to calculate our UPP and calculate our funding? So these are things that we hope to see resolved in the next couple of months. And so next month, we'll bring you the bond audits. And the next month after that, we'll bring you the second interim. And then we'll be into our budget development phase with the proposal in June 9th and our budget adoption on June 23rd. That's the governor's budget in a nutshell. I don't know if there's any questions.
How would you generally characterize this budget in terms of the district's interests?
It's a good budget. It's compared to 2 years ago when we heard 10% cut across the board. We didn't see our help with our pension relief. As you remember, we're trying to get STIRS to be able solvent. So that's on a steep curve. But I would say this in my last 24 years, this is a good one. I compare it to 2006.
I'm sorry, we went a little faster.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the last 25 years or so, we had a very good budget in 2006. And then that was after we saw lots of money come into the state. And then this has to be the next favorable budget that I have seen with no reduction at all.
Members of the board, questions, comments?
Yeah, I have a question really quickly. So I don't know how this works. So if I get something wrong, please let me know. But to my
For the sake of the audience, please introduce yourself again.
Oh yeah, sorry. So hi everyone. My name is Paola and I'm the student board member for Eastside. And I just had a question about so I don't know, I think this was part of the governor's budget, but again, correct me if I'm wrong, that like the initiative that everyone gets like a free school lunch, like you don't have to be on the free and reduced lunch program now to get like free lunch. And I think that has been great this past year. I see so many students getting lunch and they're getting fed when they typically would not be able to have access to food. And so I want to continue, is that part of the governor's budget, and how will this new budget impact that initiative that was started this past year?
So the question, if I understand it, is regarding the universal lunch program that's proposed.
Yes.
So this would continue the 2 lunches, a breakfast and lunch per day per student, regardless of your financial status. That we would serve and the key piece is if the proposal goes forward, we get paid, for that. Rather than just claiming some of the lunches, we'll be able to claim all of the lunches.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Just-
Thank you, Mr.
Just a
Willoughby.
quick one.
Oh, sure.
You had mentioned that SB 830, which would move away from ADA and more toward what they're calling average daily membership. You said that wasn't really a change of ADA. So I would love to hear your interpretation of that
Okay.
because I have a different understanding of that.
Okay,
Go.
so right now we are funded through our LCFF formula based on ADA.
Right?
So this is not proposing a change to that. This is a supplementary, this would be a new categorical program. So based on your absenteeism, you would get additional dollars to address the absenteeism. So,
I see.
and I'm sure you'd have to write a plan. You have to spend half of the money on people actually, tracking down absenteeism and addressing that. So it's not taking an enrollment number and plugging that into per student and get our 246 million. It will take the number of absent students, plug it into a per dollar per student for a categorical program for addressing absenteeism. So what I heard this morning from school services is there are no enrollment-based funding formulas going forward because it just leaves too much just to have kids enrolled and then not serve them and not care if they come or not and be funded. So it's just like that won't get any traction based on enrollment. This is kind of an answer.
I understand that
Okay.
California is like one of 4 states in the country that pays for ADA instead of enrollment.
That's true. That's true. So to get California to change, that's an effort.
We'll work on it.
Okay, good. Okay, any other questions?
So I didn't have my microphone. My microphone is not on. Sorry about that. This is a public hearing regarding proposed adoption of the initial proposal for successor contract from the Eastside Union High School District to the California School Employees Association, Chapter 187. And this is the time for testimony, so I open the public hearing. Is there anyone seeking to speak at this time? And let me call a second time for any comment on this during this public hearing regarding the successor contract. And for a third and final time, calling for any comment, public comment, on the proposed adoption of the initial proposal for successor contract from Eastside School District to California School Employees Association. Seeing none and hearing none, we are closing the public testimony part of this hearing and the hearing. Moving on to 9.02, discussion and or action regarding the proposed adoption of the initial proposal for successor contract from the Eastside School District to the California School Employees Association, Chapter 187. Associate Superintendent Tom Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is our district's sunshining of articles for the successor contract for CSEA. We're entering into, or will be entering into full negotiations this spring with them. And so these are the articles that the district would like to address.
Could you speak a little more into your microphone, please?
These are the following are the articles that the district would like to address when we do negotiate with CSEA.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's now on the record as required. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, members of the board. If there are no comments, I'm going to move on to the next public hearing, which is to receive and sunshine the initial proposal for successor contract from the California School Employees Association, Chapter 187, to the Eastside Union High School District. Mr. Nguyen.
So if I may go back to 9.02, I believe the board needs to take action on this item to
Oh.
adopt.
Ask, because it does say
Oh.
discussion or action.
Okay, back to item 9.02. If there is no discussion, no comments, let's call for the vote on 9.02. Yes. Moved by Doe, member Doe, second by member Lay.
Yeah, and a question I have is, because salary is addressed here, this is for a question for legal counsel, does our board, student board representative weigh in on this one?
Yes.
No, she does not. Not on collective bargaining issues.
Okay, thank you.
So the comment from student board representative does not pertain to bargaining issues. With that, let's call for the vote on item 9.02. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, and it passes unanimously. And now for a public hearing on receiving and sunshining the initial proposal for successor contract from the California School Employees Association, Chapter 187, to the Eastside Union High School District. And let me open the hearing and ask if there is any comment. And yes, please come forward, Mr. Pardo. And as an association president, you do have up to 5 minutes.
Julio Pardo, President, Chapter 187 East Foothills. I'd like to thank the board for putting this on this month's agenda so that we can begin negotiations as soon as possible. What I'm hoping is that we can come to an agreement with the district before June 30th, so that hopefully we don't have to proceed into the following school year. And then whatever agreements we do come to, always have to go back to the beginning. We've had that several times in the past. I am hoping that possibly we can have this done before our chapter's May meeting so that we can vote on it and then the district can vote on it in June. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is a second call for any other comments on this item, item 9.03. And this is the third and final call of this public hearing for any public comment. Do we have anyone? Seeing no others, I am going to now close the public hearing and move on to item 9.04 to receive and sunshine the initial proposal for contract reopeners for the 2022, 2023, and 2023, 2024 from the Eastside Teachers Association, CTA NEA, to the Eastside Union High School District. Associate Superintendent Tom Nguyen.
Yes, thank you. You recall in December, the district brought forth our reopener for ESTA. So this is the association's sunshining to the board. And so we do have to publicly acknowledge it and then hold a public meeting to receive this.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, moved by Cortese, second by Doe. So do we have to act
No,
on
no,
that?
it's just a public hearing.
It's just,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, we're following protocols here and learning as we go, apparently. So we're complete now with item 9.04, and now we're at item 10, public members who wish to address the board. And do we have any requests? I hear none.
There is one online wish to speak, so we will allow that person to talk. Cynthia Jacinto, if you could introduce yourself. You have
Yes.
Hello. Hi, good evening, board members, staff, and our community. My name is Cynthia Jacinto Corral. My daughter is a freshman at Evergreen Valley High School. Her name is Taylor Alviso. And I'm bringing up the topic here regarding bullying and intimidation and the fear that my daughter has being in school. On November 11th, there was a situation that happened where she was attacked. And I did bring it to the board's attention in an email. Mr. Kleckner and Mr. Bustani have done as much as they can. I am now taking it further. I would like to see, or I'd like to bring to the table, how is it that these children keep on getting away with bullying? And that my daughter wants to be in the school, she wants to learn, she likes her classes, but she's afraid to go to school. She's afraid to speak up for retaliation. There was a contract that was signed when she went back to school after she was attacked. She has been true to it. She avoids confrontation. She goes around the students, but they are always intimidating her. So since this contract keeps on getting violated, what is the next step? Because nothing more keeps on happening with the consequences for these certain students. This has been going on since November. We were hoping that by the Christmas holiday, Mr. Kleckner relayed to me that he was hoping that things would calm down after the holidays. Well, sure enough, first day back, same student, I seen a video, was attacking some other people. So I'm just, I'm wondering where the board is supposed to provide some fairness, some reasonable action, some consistent treatment of the issues that are going on. And we just feel like our hands are constantly tied and we're hitting our head against the board right now, a wall, trying to get some fairness for my daughter and for other students who are experiencing this bullying and intimidation.
Does that conclude your remarks?
That's pretty much it. Yep, in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your speaking directly to the board, and because of as we announced at the beginning, anything under public comments that has not been previously agendized or published, we're not able to engage in any discussion, but we're hearing you. And I will just say that myself as board president and vice president of the board, Lorena Chavez, we will be in communication with the administration regarding this matter. So thank you for speaking to us tonight.
Our next speaker is B. Miz.
Hi, my name is Veronica Martinez, and I am a parent of a student at Evergreen High School as well. My daughter is also experiencing bullying, and I went ahead and wrote something down just so that I can get everything out there. Okay, so my daughter, Aaliyah Martinez, has been getting bullied on Evergreen Valley High School campus. She has had lettuce, chips, and milk, and a milk carton thrown at her. Thrown at her, and that is just to name the least. Aaliyah is a cheerleader at Evergreen High School and enjoys spending time with her friends as well as going to class to learn. She wants to go to school to have a normal high school experience, but unfortunately isn't able to because the environment is too hostile. My husband and I believe students should be safe on campus when we as parents drop our kids off. It is the responsibility of the school staff to keep the school free of bullying, violence, and drugs. If the school is not capable of doing so, then there needs to be an alternative method to finding a solution to this serious problem Evergreen Valley High School has. No student or parent should have to feel like their child doesn't matter when being assaulted, harassed, intimidated, or bullied at Evergreen Valley High School. In all situations, whether staff or students should be given equal repercussions. This, in fact, is not the case at Evergreen Valley High School. What we would like is to see change on school grounds, to have a zero tolerance implemented for bullying/violence, and to find that alternative method to fixing and the uncontrolled problem Evergreen Valley High School has with their students that are out of control. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment, and say the same thing I said to our first speaker. We're hearing what you're saying, and we'll be in communication with the superintendent.
Our next speaker is Mike Corral. Mike, are you there? Mike, I see you're unmuted if you'd like to start.
Okay, and
Because the
apparently
mic is not there, so
responding. Is that the last one?
that ends public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. If, well, if within the minutes, Mike Corral signs back on, we'll give him a chance to speak, but only in another 5 minutes. Other than that, he missed it. Moving on to item 11.01, presentation, information, discussion, and/or action regarding update on the novel coronavirus, COVID-19 adopt resolution authorizing remote teleconferencing meetings through April 5, 2022. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you very much. We'll start with our COVID response update. We no longer call it reopening. We've reopened, don't we know it? And in coming to you this January, we know that we're dealing with just a new wrinkle in this COVID-19 experience was the Omicron variant. And so tonight, what I'll be sharing with you is the dashboard and up-to-date county numbers. We'll still give some updates as to testing, masking, and PPE, updates on ventilation, the rules around quarantine and isolation, as well as notification. And then we held our COVID response group meeting last week, and I'll share kind of where they were as a group and the input that they gave, and then we'll show our next steps before we move to the resolution. It goes without saying from the get that I just want to recognize our staff and our students, our community, thank them for continuing to mask. You'll hear later from the input that there's a lot of students' interest in making sure that people start double masking as well in some cases. But for all this staff that is dealing with absences and covering and keeping our schools open and educating our students, it's heroic. I mean, like let's be real about what people are dealing with and our students that are showing up each day and dealing with the learning loss that was experienced last year and holding in. So I want to just thank everybody for what they've been doing to contribute to our schools being open and our students in person. We start every time looking at our rates, and as you can see, we peaked after January with the Omicron variant. Look at these numbers at 64.54 as a 7-day rolling average, but we're starting to see the numbers come down. So as of today, the 7-day rolling average for the county was 3,614. So we're starting to see those numbers come down countywide. I want to share with you also just the items that are putting up by the county in terms of the Delta variant. When we talked about positivity a year ago, it was about 2,000 in terms of cases of positivity, almost triple that when we look at the Omicron variant, but very different scenario for currently of how it's playing out just in terms of hospitalization and deaths in comparison to that previous Delta variant. Not that we don't take or that we take Omicron any less seriously or lower our measures. We're still looking for the group safety and for each of our individuals, as well as making sure we take measures for as our students go home and live in many times intergenerational settings. Our vaccination rate as a county continues to climb, but for residents age 5 and up, we're at 88.8% vaccinated. And our booster rate is getting close to 1 million, where it's 63.5% that have gotten that booster. That's countywide. Here at home in Eastside, we see a small, the positive cases for the last 10 days. Remember, we use a 10-day rolling average here, or number, not an average. The number is 63 positive cases within those 10 days for staff, and then positive cases for students at 583. Yeah.
How does that compare to 2 weeks ago when we looked at this?
2 weeks ago, I want to say that our positives were 54 and they've for adults and was we're above 700 for students. So we're seeing that the staff number took a bit of a tick up in this last 10 days compared to previously, and our student count has dropped. All right, so let's talk about the testing, because as I met with the group, the challenge on this is making sure that there's enough tests for those that are out to be able to return after 5 days if they're asymptomatic and holding on to that, as well as getting tests out for that. We still don't have just on site, or I won't want to falsely promise that we could do surveillance testing and test all staff and all students at this current time on a weekly basis. But we'll see as tests, just like more PPE is coming in, personal protective equipment, we're seeing a greater availability of tests. And so we'll continue to kind of manage the layers of testing at all our sites. But we have the rapid home test kits for students. Go ahead. Sure.
What's the lag time in terms of reporting for either students or for adult? So when I see that numbers, is that what we're seeing at this very moment, or there's some lag time of 2 days, 3 days? What?
The HR has been really good in getting that number within about a 24-hour window. So you're looking at either yesterday's data or just got updated in the evening when you look at this. So there are some districts that are waiting to only report on every Monday. We're committed to getting this information in and making sure that it's within a 24-hour window. And sometimes we're tighter than that.
So when I see 63 adult, 583 students, for example, if I may just do just a quick deep dive, that's how many people that are currently having COVID. They haven't successfully taken a test that is negative, right?
Those are people that within the last 10 days tested positive.
Got it.
But if they tested positive 10 days ago, they've gone through the 5 days, they're asymptomatic and do a negative test, they can return.
Do we remove them off the list when they take a negative, or we don't have to remove them off? What's the mechanisms?
We don't, the dashboard is ever living. And so we have data back to when we traced it starting in August. And so we can go back every single day, every 1 or 2, every single week, and look at the total counts for that particular week or that singular day.
Thank you.
All right, so just so we shared this with the group, just the levels of the rapid testing, the rapid antigen testing, the PCR test that we have now available for people if they want to, if they're symptomatic or just wanting to test to see if they're positive. We have those PCR tests available. And then once again, we've continued with the Makion testing or that antigen testing since March. If we just look at just kind of testing since January 3, when we came back for second semester, we did distribute 23,670 of the rapid home tests for kids. For returning from quarantine, we've tested over 634 students and 122 staff. 921 folks have taken that PCR test that's available at our sites. And then through the Makion that we've talked about, we've had over 3,600 or so people test from January. Just sharing with you a little bit just in terms of our current inventory and in what we have available, because we just received new shipments. So with the rapid antigen testing, we have over 6,000 tests. The PCR, we're up to 16,000. So these tests are available at our sites. And so for those that are looking to test, please contact your site and your administration about becoming available, making that available. And then that last data point is just every school has their supply of that Makion antigen test. And if they want, if there needs to be an increase in that number, sites just add more.
So Glenn, if you go back the test, like the PCR testing, for example, what's the difference between the number in blue and black?
This is just letting you know that previously we had about 12,000 and just quite recently we received another 4,500, because a lot of the questions are, why aren't we just testing all the time every day? And it's a lot about keeping people informed of when we're getting new things so that that they kind of have a sense that this is new, and and we can start looking about how often we can replenish.
So the blue is like the updated number.
Yeah, that's the max. And then we're just letting you know that we just received another shipment of 4,500 to contribute to that.
Got it. Thank you.
There's also now increasing programs for people to be able to request either through our health plans through the county to get tested there. And then also now, the families or households can request testing through the test of the federal government. And they've said, give them about 7 to 12 days to get to that. Masking is still key, and in talking with our students, and in our last board meeting, that there was a student that raised some concerns, and there were about 600 students that signed a petition, and we met with them as a group, and one of their asks was just to make sure that those KN95s are available and distributed at the sites, and then also a special ask in our next communication to have some kind of details about how to appropriately double mask, and so we'll be doing that, and just want to encourage our community that if you need the mask, ask for it. They're available. We're receiving today and tomorrow another 270,000 from the county. So we've distributed 250,000 or more, and now we'll be able to consistently provide as our inventory grows. Once again, we've just in terms of personal protective equipment, just want to update folks on just the availability of those KN95 masks. We just received more hand sanitizers and getting that out to sites to just make sure that's available to people. It's just to kind of show in terms of what's been distributed. And then recently with recent add-ons, I mentioned those N95 and KN95 masks that were up. We've distributed over 600,000 masks. And after tomorrow, we'll have our inventory at about 500,000 again to be able to distribute into the future. Ventilation, as I mentioned before, our filtration systems are running. They've got all the necessary and required filters, and we're changing out those MERV 13 filters as they're required. The quarantine process, at one point was 10 days. It's been reduced to 5. When someone is asymptomatic, they could take that antigen test, and if it's a negative, return to work or to their learning environment. We just want to encourage everybody to do so, that the tests are definitely available to them. That there's a state public order for our staff to be vaccinated, and we're at 85.6 vaccination rate as of yesterday. Our district is not choosing to just do a group exposure notification, which would just be sending home a letter and say your child may have been in contact with COVID. I just once again have to thank site staff that is dealing with all these positive cases and doing the work to get those emails and those communications sent out. There was a couple of students that said, hey, we're not getting the notification ourselves. It's going to our parents. And sometimes our parents don't check the email or, so could you send it to us as well? And we've managed to address that issue so that if a student has the student will be emailed as well as the family as a part of their possible exposure notification. And I just want to thank our, lift up student voice again for not staying silent on something like this and going, yeah, you're informing our families, but and kind of where we are in life, it would be helpful for us to get that too. So I just want to thank all the sites for making that happen for our students. Once again, I want to reiterate that the state currently is not offering a distance learning option. There's the independent studies, and we've had about 139 new requests. Thank you, Ed Services, and thank you, staff, for really providing a service and a program that prior to this year was never at this scale. And with this kind of the frequency of it and our staff across our district's ability to react and pivot and dedicate their time and energies for our learners, teachers that are doing it as a 6-period assignment, our educators that are setting it up and holding these meetings. It's just, again, a continued testimony to the power in the community of Eastside and how this group of educators and people are just really stepping up for students. The governor, as we talked about, has provided additional flexibility for no more adults to be eligible to substitute, such as student teachers, extending the period of time for long-term substitutions. And so we'll be, just like we're deploying district level personnel to sites, we'll be looking to our student teachers and other resources to help with those shortages that we are experiencing in our system. The COVID response group, we shared all this same data with them and really gave some input that I just want to keep in mind and share with this group and with our community. One, they're interested in maintaining the field trip guidelines. of no out of state, no overnight. I know that that's, for some groups that are used to being able to go to out of state activities, that's been disappointing. And as an educator who'd love our students to be able to experience everything, I get that disappointment, but really want to look out for the health and safety of our students. And so the group's input was to hold on to that, and some discussion about making testing available for students that do go on a trip in state and not overnight to still be able to test upon their return. One of the key things that's coming from, once again, with student voice is, and it will be in our next communication, is just a reminder to all our community about how to access assignments when you are in quarantine or in isolation. And then just a reminder about makeup grading policies, just so that we're all aware of as a system, what our shared expectations are. The committee is looking for us as site leaders, athletic directors, coaches, and as for our community to insist with each other as a community that athletes and spectators are wearing the mask for indoor athletics when it's for our spectators all our time, and then for our athletes as appropriate. And then our students are asking or requesting from sites just for additional mass distribution, just make sure that that's really clear to students about how to make that happen, and then instructions for double masking. And the group is continue to monitor the local data, because they are seeing that spike. And there's, in COVID, we've learned to kind of what's next, right? But really to be mindful of the data and the responses, and then the increased availability of PPE and testing as we move forward. And so that's what we're going to do. Our next communication will delineate just kind of the availability of testing, and then just reiterate our homework and grading reminders. And then we'll continue to implement that independent studies program. And I can't thank those that are managing the program and those are implementing enough for how they've stood up for our students this year. We'll continue to monitor the changes and the guidelines, or the changes to the guidelines, which are frequent. We recently extended our leave MOU with our bargaining units to the end of the year, but we also know that there's legislation right now up in Sacramento about perhaps extending it. Whether they do or not, we as a district have committed to that. We'll continue to utilize the changes for staffing regulations for subs. And like I said earlier, we'll communicate with our families and our students individually on exposure notification. That's what was. I want to thank the members of that COVID group for staying on top of this, for their directness in their comments, and their, just looking out for the community as a whole. There were some that are just like, oh, this year is frustrating because I want to do so much more, but thinking of the community as a whole's health, I just want to appreciate them for that.
Does that conclude your report?
That includes the report.
Thank you. And members of the board, comments or questions?
I just want to express my gratitude to everybody who has played a role on this. And I know it's a lot of people. I'll get closer. From sending notification to the students, which might seem like something small, but it's huge, right? Because students can take action on their own. We just got to give them an opportunity. So that's big. Increasing the independent studies program to a number of other things. So just want to say thank you for keeping pace with all the changes and supporting our school community to be in the best place that they could potentially be.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Member Cortez.
It's very encouraging to see that the spike receding. But, reading in the paper now about the new stealth Omicron variant, so it's obviously impossible to say what's going to happen next with this. But I think we need to be looking at Corona or COVID as I think we need, as a district, need to start thinking long-term about how do we handle this when we officially acknowledge that COVID is endemic and not pandemic. And maybe that is, looking at remote distance learning high school or, I'm not sure what it looks like, but I was encouraged to see an article that was talking about how, the N95 masks in the beginning, if you remember in the beginning of the pandemic, they actually told us that we didn't need masks at all, right? Don't run out and get masks. And I think they really told us that because they're worried that everyone would buy up the N95 masks and there wouldn't be any for people who are really tending to people with COVID. And then they said, oh no, anything over your face is helpful. It helps other people, doesn't help yourself, it helps other people. And I read an article today that said that actually the N95 or the KN95 mask actually does protect you. And that maybe we can now move to a place where masks are optional because people who really want to be protected can wear the N95 mask, and then, others who feel differently can do differently. But I think we need to, and maybe it's too early to consider this, but as we keep an eye on it, maybe we need to start looking at how do we respond as this becomes more of a way of life? Because I think our children have sort of borne the brunt of this. They're the least impacted, and I think they're the least impacted by the disease, and they're most impacted by the measures. Our students and even those their siblings in our feeder districts. So just some thoughts I'd like us to reflect on.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Member Lay.
I was wondering about the I-95 masks. How many times do we have to reuse it, or will be disposable masks like other masks?
They are recommended to be disposed. They're not meant to be reused over and over again. And so when the county gave us our shipment, they gave us a 10-day supply, which is one per person per day. So that's the recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah, so those are available. If someone brings their own mask, that's fine. You don't have to use a district provided mask, but they are available for our students. And as you talk about moving forward, what adaptations we might make, we'll do that. But just a reminder to our entire community that currently the recommendation is indoors masking, and we're going to stick with that until we read the guidelines and make I'll take alternative measures in the future.
Clearly, we cannot do anything on our own. Clearly, we have to work in tandem with public health and the state and the county. I just think overall as a community, as not as just a district, but larger as a community, to be thinking about how do we learn to live with this,
Sure. Thank you. Board President, there is a resolution to take action on.
Oh, gosh.
This is the resolution that
So,
allows us to continue to meet virtually and for board meetings and also for other meetings, publicly held meetings that we have as a district.
Okay, need a motion for adopting resolution authorizing remote teleconferencing meetings through April 5, 2022.
I'll second.
Moved by Doe, seconded by Cortese. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Oh, our student representative, sorry.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Like, after when April 5th comes, do you renew it again, or is this like the end of it?
I think it has to be renewed monthly. Is that what she's?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, Paula?
Yeah, I was gonna ask on what basis does this get renewed? Like, will it be renewed again, or is this like the last time?
The basis for the resolution?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to renew this resolution every 30 days. So because we are experiencing Omicron, the board has the ability to take this action. They have to renew it every 30 days.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Then my vote is yes.
Okay, you vote yes, and that concludes our vote. Adopted unanimously. Moving on to item 12.01. Action, discussion and or action to approve school accountability report cards. Associate Superintendent Teresa Marquez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I introduce to you once again, Kirsten Keene, Director of Assessment and Accountability, who will be providing information to you on our SARCs.
All right, good evening. I am Kirsten King, Director of Assessment and Accountability for the Eastside Union High School District. And this item is on the school accountability report cards, and education code dictates that districts produce school accountability report cards for all of its high schools. And it defines in ed code all of the required data points and elements that must be in the SARCs. And we also have by law to publish those SARCs in translated languages at the schools for any population of students that is 15% or more who speaks a specific language other than English. So on the board item, if you're interested, it does show you which schools have translated SARCs and what those languages are. They're either Spanish or Vietnamese or both at the schools. So we publish the SARCs in English and those languages. We publish them on our website, and we provide a link on the CDE website to our SARCs as well. And we make them available to the public if they want them downloaded. If they want a hard copy. The only other item, I guess, for me to discuss really about this is that we use a vendor, document tracking services, also known as DTS casually, and they help facilitate the collection of all of the information. And 80% of the data in the SARC is provided by the California Department of Ed in a big data file out to districts. And so DTS takes that and populates those data points within there, and then they open it up for us to add our own data points in there as well. And let's see, there's one other. This year, the state changed some of the teacher credentialing, teacher misassignment information. They added a whole bunch of data actually in this area, and it's late. So the CDE doesn't have it to give to the districts. And so what the CDE has told everybody is that we should go ahead, publish those SARCs by our February 1st deadline. Make sure they're board approved first. And then when the data becomes available in February, we will revise them, republish them, but it doesn't need to come back to the board. And at this point, I'll take any questions if you have any.
Members of the board, comments, questions? If not,
How do you use these? Who uses it? How are these used?
Well, you want to say something?
Well, they're used in different ways. They're used by members of the public that want to just get a sense of what the school is, how it's performing, and the different, all the data that's related to that school. It's sometimes used by outside organizations that are, looking for school change or school reform and looking at that. And it's just a way for our sites to be known and publicly put out to all. This is who we are with full transparency and with the data that's been generated by the official state, the official data by the state and by their calculations.
The other piece of it is some of the data within the SARCs isn't on the public DataQuest website that most people go to, or Ed Data, that type of thing. So it does provide some data points for schools and stuff that don't exist anywhere else.
This is something we are required to provide. We don't use much of this data for ourselves as far as our own consumptions, but it's more for all the government agencies and the public. Am I correct?
Yes, and actually, a lot of the data that's in the SARC also you would recognize as being part of the annual data that we look at, and it's part of the LCAP.
Yeah.
All right, so we asking the board to approve the SARCs brought to
Move
you
for
tonight.
approval.
Second.
moved by Chavez and second by Cortese. All in favor, please. Oops, student representative, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, passes unanimously. On to item 12.02, discussion and or action to approve the 2022 summer school program. Associate Superintendent Teresa Marquez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, trustees and community. Teresa Marquez, Associate Superintendent Services. This is an item that we bring around this time every year for the approval of our summer school program so that we can continue and engage with the detailed planning, which include posting of positions, hiring of teachers, as well as the detailed planning by each of the school sites for offering of courses. So I'm asking the board for approval of our summer school plan so that we can continue with the planning of the details of summer school. Thank you.
Move for approval.
Moved by Chavez, second by Lay. Student Board Rep, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, members of the board are in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously.
And can I just say thank you for doing this? I know there's a lot of work to do. Right, in a normal school year, there's a lot, especially right now. And I just want to reiterate how more than ever, it's important to support our students ongoing, especially to recover from the learning loss. And I've been speaking to some entities, and some of them are just saying, you know, we don't have the capacity. We're not going to do summer school. And not only are we doing summer school, but we are providing a diverse set of options for our students. And I'm not going to lie, where my eyes went first, I'm like, those ninth graders, all of our children need support, all of them at every level. But I'm thinking about kids at a younger grade coming into a new system and how much of a shocker it's going to be, especially after having experienced a wide array of things. So I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to item 13.01, approving contracts for professional services over 25,000. Need a motion.
Move to approve.
Moved by Cortese, seconded by Dole. Student Board Representative, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. Item 13.02, adopting resolution for continued funding application and contract renewal of the California State Preschool Program. Need a motion here.
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Cortese, seconded by Doe. And Student Board Representative, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Thank you. Members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. Item 13.03 for resolution for continued funding application. Am I in the right one? Yeah. Contract renewal of general childcare and development program. Moved by Lay, seconded by Doe. Student Representative, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. Item 14.01 to adopt and approve the adult education calendar for the 2022-2023 school year.
Move to approve.
Moved by Cortese, second by Doe. Student Board Representative.
I vote yes.
Members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. No items under 15 on the agenda for facilities bond. So consent calendar. Need a motion.
Move to approve.
Moved by Doe, seconded by Cortese. Student Board Representative, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Members of the board, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes unanimously. And then on to item 21.01, and there are no written reports and recommendations. Moving on to 22.01, opportunity for trustees to request items on future agendas. Hearing none, we're going to proceed to 22.02, and it just simply carries forward to items that are already requested, and we'll be following that timeline, that schedule. So that takes us to Board of Trustees, Superintendent Comments, Communications. We're doing good. All right, so to my far left, Member Doe for comment. Okay, Vice President Chavez.
Yes, so updates for the Board Audit Committee and Santa Clara County School Board Association met for those two this week. So 3 meetings this week on a roll. That's how we get paid the big bucks, right? So for the board audit committee, a highlight is that we got the audit report and we have a clean audit. So that's a big celebration. For the Santa Clara County School Boards Association, they also shared some of the budget priorities that Mr. Willett had noted tonight. Things that really stood out to me, especially because I'm thinking about what we're doing as a district where there's opportunities. And for example, the implementation policies that encourage inclusion of students with disabilities. We just talked about that 2 weeks ago. So knowing that that's top of mind for the county as a whole and that we're already starting to pilot is a testament to us already moving ahead of everyone. So I was really excited to see that. Another one was creating ongoing funding streams to sustain investments in student wellness, which we know we need a lot of support there as well. And additional considerations that are top of mind that stood out is the declining enrollment and pandemic-related declines in attendance. And what does that mean? And we touched on this other one, which is the ADA funding debate versus chronic absenteeism, which we saw there's a few bills out there, but people are talking about it. And there's another level of engagement, which is really encouraging. So those were some highlights from those meetings. And last but not least, Happy New Year.
Right, we're still in January, yeah. To my right, Board Clerk Cortese.
Just appreciation to our superintendent and board colleagues for our board retreat this past weekend. Really enjoyed our time together, and I'm inspired by the direction we're going, and looking forward to the rest of this year.
Member Lay.
I want to say happy Tet. February 1st is the first day of the Vietnamese and lunar calendar year. So wish everyone happiness, prosperity, also stay safe and healthy. It's very important. And I know that family will gather just like any other big holidays in everyone's family. But I know that my family also has several of them had Omicron, and so unfortunately, we can have a small gathering, not as big. But I wish everyone, just good health, and looking forward for Year of the Tiger. It's very important. It's one of the years that probably, hopefully, that we will chase on of this COVID-19 and Omicron, and appreciate all of the staff, as well as teachers and administrators have been working very hard during the most challenging time. And I probably will forward some email to superintendent, because my company also give out some grant to the nonprofit organization, as well as this education as school. So hope that we be able to have applied and get some grant for our program. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And I have no comments. So our student board representative, Paula Escobar.
Yes, well, again, Happy New Year, both Tet and also just 2022. And so also, I just want to give again a thanks to Californians for Justice. I don't know if anyone from California Justice is in the audience, but I'm just so proud of all the students for just taking on the initiative of being involved and reclaiming their voice in education and taking a stance for their communities and for themselves. I also wanted to express gratitude to the Student Equity Council at Evergreen Valley. I know we couldn't meet this past week because of Omicron, because we typically have to go to Mount Pleasant, and we couldn't just because, again, Omicron, but we'll be working again soon. And it's just really great to see these school site level changes being made, and they're being very much student led, student oriented. And we're seeing people who are typically not invited to the conversations being involved in taking a part in their communities. I think that's so great to see, and I can't wait to see what comes out of these student equity councils from when I graduate and beyond. And I'm so just grateful for all the students who are, standing up for themselves and like who have been showing up to meetings as well as speaking up for themselves about COVID and what the concerns have been. I know especially immunocompromised and disabled students have been impacted by COVID. And so I'm so, it's great that the district is taking some steps, and that was really because the students were able to speak up about their concerns and the students showed up when they needed to.
Okay, thank you very much. And Mr. Superintendent, any comment?
Yeah, I can't do enough to just continue to be grateful for the efforts of our adults and our staff in our system. And I do want to say that I've really appreciated the ways the student voice has been lifted up in our district, how naturally it is occurring, and how solution oriented is. It's fantastic. We still have a lot of growth to do as a district and finding ways to include student voice. And I love that these student equity teams at our sites is just a great development. But I do want our community to know that yesterday our district was highlighted by a study from the University of California, Los Angeles, and the Center for School Transformation for exactly that, for collaborating. And as Paula mentioned, Californians for Justice was part of that collaboration in lifting up student voice, our student governing board, our student equity teams, the way in our LCAPs really focus in on getting the voices of those, I think we, for the voices that really those dollars are targeted for. And what was wonderful was seeing all the statewide educators and leaders across the state that were there to focus on the study here, but also to see the level of students that are now moving this conversation to other districts, that the great majority of them are Eastside students that have seen the value of participation, are able to articulate and not just listen, but how systemically, how a system has to continue to evolve and change and allow for that voice and take it in for outcomes. So just really proud to be part of Eastside and be part of that work, but also just know that it continues. We're not done yet.
Thank you. And item 23.04 is board meeting evaluation. Any comments, members of the board? What was that? Okay, well, we're finishing early, I'm hearing, and thumbs up, I'm hearing, and generally, it was a good meeting. Even the administration is saying thumbs up.
I can see the smile.
Okay, hate to disappoint you with such an early finish, but no. Moving on, report from closed session. You were not heard.
There are no closed session actions to report.
Okay, adjournment is what's next, so adjourning the meeting at 33 p.m. Wow. Okay, thank you.